Hello, everyone, and welcome to the AE Team Group's webinar on the roles of cloud and managed services in optimizing enterprise data management. My name is Joy McKnight. I'm an editorial contributor at the AE Team Group, and I'll be moderating the webinar today. But before we start on our discussion, here's a few upcoming A-Team Insight events that might be of interest to you. On June 20th, there's the AI and Capital Markets Summit held in London. We'll be hosting a webinar on the 18th of July entitled How to Maximize the Use of Data Standards and Identifiers Beyond Compliance and in the Interests of Business. And the Data Management Summit, New York City, is back for its 14th year on 26th of September. So you can scroll down to the bottom of this page for more information and to sign up right away. But back to today's topic on optimizing enterprise data management. Our expert speakers today are Mark Hermeling, who's CTO of Alveo, Jimmy Koslow, Product Manager, Data Mesh at Northern Trust, Jeremy Posner, Lead Data Architect at Fidelity International, Jason West, Director of Real-Time Managed Service, London Stock Exchange Group, Data and Analytics. I'll ask all the speakers to introduce themselves in just a moment, but first, some information on how you can take part in today's webinar. To the right of the video, you'll see a box for questions and polls. We'll be running 3 polls during the webinar, so please vote and help us gauge industry opinion. I'll remind you when the polls are coming up. If you'd like to ask the experts any questions, we'll be taking questions from the audience throughout the webinar, so please feel free to add yours to the box under the questions tab. So let me introduce our speakers and get them to introduce themselves. Jeremy.
Hi, my name is Jeremy Posner. I'm the lead data architect at Fidelity International, who are a global asset manager. I lead the data architecture for the manufacturing and distribution to its institutions sides of the business. My background is 25 plus years working in finance and data management, firstly as a developer and then as a database engineer, data modeler, architect, data strategist. And along the way, I've seen a lot of enterprise data management efforts. So I've got a broad spectrum of history to look back at and forward to.
Excellent. And Jimmy?
Hi, everyone. I'm Jimmy Koslow. I'm with Northern Trust. As Joy mentioned, I lead our Data Mesh initiative. One of my roles is to partner with each of our business units' chief data officers and help them establish a pipeline of priorities of data products that'll be created on the Data Mesh. I also oversee our data marketplace. So I'm in charge of developing the features and capabilities that help access those data products that teams are delivering to the Data Mesh. We've been on our journey for about 2.5 years and have some lessons learned to share along the way.
Oh, excellent. That's going to be great. And Jason?
Hi there. Yeah, so Jason West, based in London. I work for the London Stock Exchange Group. So I manage the real-time business for all of our clients across the world. And I also oversee and manage the LSEG Managed Services business.
Excellent. And Mark, last but not least.
Hi, I'm Mark Hermeling. I'm the CTO at Alveo. So I cover the technology function for our firm and all technical aspects of our managed services and DaaS offerings.
Excellent. All right. Thank you all for introducing yourselves. I'm really looking forward to the discussion. But before we start the panel, let's engage our audience with the first poll question. So can we bring up the poll question? It's how satisfied is your organization with its enterprise data management or EDM solution? So the questions are up. It's on Slido. So take a look and then vote. But while we're waiting for the poll results, let's kick off the discussion with the first question. And Mark, I'll aim the first question at yourself. So, what is the status quo on EDM or enterprise data management across the capital markets today?
Yeah, I would say that there are key aspects to it. So one is configurability around your vendor sources, domains, but also your business rules and how you export the data. And to the point of exporting data, the need for interoperability, right? How to get your data into your systems and also downstream, data warehousing, but also downstream business systems. Compare that with the that flexibility with the level of control you need to have over where data goes and transparency around your data flows. So that's the general need and the state. But then if you put it in the context of managed services, you're starting more to look at, especially in your contract, more to look at service levels and operational resilience and overall the cost, which has always been a factor, of course.
Mm. It's interesting to see it from across the market. But Jeremy, I was going to point the question to you next, because it's interesting also to see it from an institutional perspective.
So I've worked at a number of institutions. So I've seen a lot of different ways of doing enterprise data management, some more mature than others, of course. And so I think it depends a lot on the company, its maturity, its organizational complexity, and also the perceived criticality of each type of data. Plus, of course, the desire to change that, let's say a regulator's breathing down your neck, and of course the budget.
Mm.
So there's a lot of factors. At one end, you've got extremely mature companies with well-documented business processes, single masters of everything, high quality data inputs, mature distribution processes, data quality and governance all working. So that's great. Okay. But then at the other end, you've also got, quite immature, poorly defined, multiple business processes for the same thing, different solutions for different jurisdictions or different business lines, no single truth of data for the users to get to, ad hoc integration and even augmentation by spreadsheets. That still exists, right? And so, there is no one answer to where are you. I think people can probably identify maybe with one end than the other. In general, companies are moving they're moving core data management to the cloud, like everything else. They're starting to embrace modern techniques to acquire data through the cloud. And there's definitely possibilities to upgrade the business process, which is really important, the technology, of course, and also their data maturity. And it's all three together which really matter. That's what gets you to a better place. And of course, the other end of the spectrum, you've got the users wanting more and more data. They got voracious needs for more and more data for analytics, of course. So we all know that, and the whole AI story and all of that. I won't go into that anymore, but.
Okay, I have to say, I think we're going to touch on that a little bit later.
Sure.
Thank you very much for that. Maybe we can see the results of the poll. All right, so I think that's quite interesting. And maybe I'll go back to Mark. It seems like, almost half of our audience actually says that they're pretty satisfied, and that there's maybe a little bit of room for improvement, but they definitely feel maybe like they have a little bit more control. Is that a surprise for you?
No, not really, because Alveo and many others have been very focused on business user enablement and allowing the user to configure the system. So the need was identified a long time ago, but definitely in the last 5 years, I think there's been a big shift by all of us, and obviously that's resonating with the people that are actually using the systems.
Excellent. All right, well, maybe we'll move on to the next question, which I think is interesting because it's sort of the pie in the sky looking at things. With no constraints, what would an optimal EDM look like and what could it deliver? Maybe I'll point this question at Jason.
It is a good question. Utopia is not far away, shall we say. So for me, an EDM or having access to your data rapidly, at LSEG, we provide historical and real-time data, both in public cloud, private cloud, on premises. So your business wants to get to data really quickly. So sometimes you'll store it, petabytes of data sat in your data centers. It's wasting time, it's wasting dollars, it's wasting CapEx. So Utopia is on-demand data, provisioned within minutes, obviously access controls around it, dynamic billing, the ability to scale up that environment to manage compute for your data scientists or your quants or your data engineers or doing back testing, then it'll scale back down again. So that's the public cloud side of it. We're seeing more and more of our clients push that way. But again, within big financial institutes, and I used to work at Citi, developers and quants, they don't care about how much money they're spending. So you've got to be able to cap whatever they're querying. And at the end of the month, I get a credit card bill from my credit card provider. You want to be able to give that to business heads to say, this is how much you burn on data management, data query, and backtesting this month. That'll give you then the ability to understand, actually, what am I making money? And two, how much is the thing costing me to run? And then on Friday night, just as the sun sets and the markets close, the entire public cloud environment collapses and goes to sleep until 4 o'clock Sunday afternoon, where it comes back up again, and you're able to query and play with your data as and when you need it on Monday morning. So it's not too far away. We're getting there. But yeah, we are seeing this big push, public cloud or hybrid on-prem, off-prem. And then the other thing we're seeing is using someone's data, petabytes of data that's already stored on public cloud. Just query that data and then bring the results back in. Don't bring that data in and store it, because everyone will store it. No single source of truth, like Jeremy and Mark said. So it's coming, it's there. Lots of people are mature. Some are just taking the journey, but yeah, I think that's where it's going.
Excellent. I have to say, I saw a lot of nods across everyone. But Jimmy, do you have anything that, from your perspective, what would an optimal EDM, the utopia, what would it look like?
Yeah, I don't have much to add to Jason's view of utopia. I'd be there. Part of my work with the data mesh is how do you achieve that? And look, it's an art. It's not a science. There's a lot of scientific principles you can apply, and I'll share a couple of them. But I think vertically, you want to get to utopia. You want to structure your business and your data in domains. And those domains are kind of broken down into a bounded context that allows each of them to be addressed independently. And then each of those domains has a domain lead, and they're responsible for how data is used and modeled and combined within that domain. But Mark touched on how important interoperability is to Jason's utopia. And that really is where someone who leads a domain has the functional expertise to work within that domain and help understand across domains. So this is the horizontal aspect of it. How does that data in that domain become shared? How available is it real time? What velocity does it have, and how should it be used? So that's how I think we structure things in terms of domains. And then you have the operational aspect of that. How do you keep your data fresh? How do you make sure the model's up to date? And how do you make sure that the terms and conditions of use are being met? And that's where there's some key roles that are associated with data domains and products within those domains. So one of the things with our data mesh is we're thinking about data as a product. And each data product has an owner who's responsible for the life cycle, a steward who's responsible for maintaining quality, and then a custodian who's responsible for the delivery. So to get to utopia, I think you can create this ecosystem where all these things work in concert that ultimately get you to that vision.
Excellent. That's really interesting. I was going to move on and bring us back to reality. Really. And Mark, I was going to aim this question at you, which is, what are the key elements of successful EDM? And I don't know if you want to comment also on what Jimmy has just said.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, what Jimmy's saying is it's really almost bringing us back down to reality already, right? I mean, it's a great vision, and I can see myself sipping some tea on the weekend and getting ready for the next week. But as Jason put it, but yeah, there's a lot of things that interplay: configurability, interoperability. I'll emphasize it again. Transparency also. Be able to look at your data and actually easily understand what you have in front of yourself. But to Jason's point, rigorous controls, cost allocation is key. Yeah. And because people do just want to take data, and actually there's a lot of duplication of effort. The integrity of your data, which you need to maintain. But if you look at in the managed services context, because obviously we're all trying to now move into the cloud, but also get things given to you, have to delivered as a service. It's the operational resilience, and there are more and more regulatory requirements around it, like DORA, for example, that will drive that. So we have to do it, but I think it's always good, especially because I'm also in our organization responsible for it, to always do that anyway. So it's good that there's regulation around it, but people need to be able to rely, when they come in on the Monday, everything needs to come up again. So spinning it up and down is definitely in theory possible, in practice hard. I don't think we're there yet. The same thing as with cloud's ability to dynamically scale. Yes, in theory you can do that, but it requires a lot of skill. And to Jimmy's point earlier, I've done that for retail banking, and it's a real art. I mean, it's really, you're juggling plates all over the place. So yes.
Excellent. Well, Jason, I saw you nodding again a lot there and also smiling. So do you want to come in on this one as well, which is the key elements of a successful EDM?
Yeah, so Mark brought us crashing back down to reality quite heavily there. So I think I think with a lot of EDMs, someone mentioned at the beginning, right? Everyone is data hungry right now. Data gives you wallet share, data gets you in the market faster, data gives you alpha. And if you have a look at the data rates just on our backbone over from 2021 to 2023, they grew 66%. And we shunt 220 billion messages a day around our network. So when we tell our clients that, they're like, wow, so you're going to give me more data, it's going to continue to grow. Where am I going to store this stuff? And we say, you should go to public cloud. But then you get their CISOs and their BISOs in the room and they say, are you out of your mind? We're not allowing you to shunt this data out or bring it in. You can't have the public cloud calling into you. So it takes a lot of time working with cloud providers and the cyber guys and the business information security officers just to get that first thing up and running and working. And once it's working, they understand it, they're comfortable with it. The security is there, the security is good. Sometimes it is better than the security you'll have on premise for bugs, leaks, all those type of things. So having the ability to have it on premise and off premise, expand out, as Mark mentioned, the scalability, horizontally scaling if you're doing back testing, but making sure that environment shuts down again when you're finished, because it all does come down to the security, the cost play, being very smart with the data. Don't bring the data to your application. Go and query the data where it resides. Just bring the answer back. So for us as a company, we have 70 petabytes of data just sat out there. Going back to 1986, our clients come and query that data at our source. So it's a single source, then they take the answer back. Now, I also know lots of our clients are stubbornly saying, well, we want to keep that data ourselves. And we're like, that's fine, but that's going to cost you a lot of money to store, manage, and maintain, then access it. So yeah, there's multiple things in the reality space. I think everyone's on different parts of the journey. It's how happy you are to take that next step to make it easier for your client base to access data and play with it.
Excellent. Okay, let's go on to the next poll question for our audience, which is, what are the challenges of EDM at your organization? And I think this will be quite interesting really to come to the nub of what the problem really is. Obviously, one of the answers is no challenges, so maybe you have a great setup already. But I would say, and I'm going to ask Jimmy to go first on this one, which is, what do you think are the biggest challenges of today's EDM implementations?
I would start kind of with two things. One is data literacy, and the other one is the capacity of our subject matter experts. And they're somewhat related. I think on the literacy front, we say things like data domains and bounded context, and a lot of people don't know what that means. So you have to educate them to understand, one, what does good data management look like? How do I, as a practitioner, engage with those data management practices? And that's just on the data management side. Then you have the technology side, which, large organizations, there's different rates of proliferation of cloud and different technologies that subject matter experts may know from a long time being around the technology. So there's a shift. And I think change management's key with that shift, right? From a literacy perspective, using simple terms to help the masses understand what this data management strategy looks like and how it affects their day-to-day job. And then oftentimes the day-to-day job is in addition to maybe new roles as practitioners of data management. So that's where our subject matter experts who know the space and know the technology and know the data governance aspect of it well, that's on the side, they're doing that on the side of their desk. So I think the two are related, because the more you can build data literacy in your organization, the more subject matter expert capacity you'll build, and that'll ultimately help. But that's certainly been a challenge as we've been on our journey.
Can I just ask how difficult it is in terms of attracting talent to your organization? Maybe not just your organization, but in the industry.
Yeah, I'd say in the industry, it takes, think about a data steward. Their role is to maintain quality of a data set. It takes a specific interest in the data model, the quality, and the practices that are based around that. And that's definitely, I'd say, a specialized skill set. Because you could have general data knowledge, but when it gets into the specific implementation, that's where a steward's insight into quality really matters. And I think that's where it's hard to find that sweet spot.
So, and Jeremy, I'm going to bring you in as well. Maybe talk a little bit about some of the points that Jimmy has already made. But of course, the main question is about the challenges about implementation today.
So I think, like any other software that you might buy or even build, customization is a key challenge, and integration always. So, and then obviously there's a skills challenge as well. If you're bringing something new into the organization, then there's always a skills challenge. But as a data architect, I'll give you the data architect sort of angle, which is not necessarily the technology one. I'll talk more about business processes and data representation, your data models. So your business needs to understand and define how it models and manages its information, and the business processes that it uses now and that it might want to use in the future, maybe more optimal business processes. So things like onboarding of data, quality checking, curation, security processes, publication processes, etc. Most organizations don't necessarily map those out particularly very well. So they decide to go and look at tools. We'll go and have a look, do a roadshow of tools, and they'll look at maybe technical aspects or some other aspects, but they won't necessarily look at the business processes that they have now or want to configure in the future. Maybe new business processes with integration to third-party applications. So that's always a challenge, being able to take a product and then make it do what you want it to do, how you want it to do it. And then the other thing is the data model side of things. So a lot of products are built with an opinionated model in mind, and that opinionated model is not necessarily the one that you want to use in your organization. So you've got mismatch of data structures, and then you have to effectively fit one to the other. And so the question is, are they flexible enough? Can you get what you want out of a product? And that's why a lot of companies end up building things themselves, because they can effectively build whatever structures they like. So I think those are two big issues. And lastly, of course, there's a skills challenge, because there's always going to be a skills mismatch. You're going to either bring something new into the organization, or you're going to maybe build a whole EDM layer yourself. Either way, you don't have the experience in-house, and you have to get it from somewhere. So you're reliant on vendor staff, external consulting, and then that adds significant project risk.
And I wondered, does it add costs as well?
Of course.
Yeah, of course. All right, maybe we'll take a look at the poll results. Okay, it's pretty evenly split actually, which is quite interesting. Obviously, the lack of investment is top, which maybe isn't that surprising. Legacy solutions, data silos, that's still very high. I know that's been talked about for years. Poor data governance, I think that speaks to some of the things that both Jimmy and Jeremy pointed out, and data quality. Jeremy, does this surprise you in terms of lack of investment as the top challenge? Do you think that's
No.
Yeah?
Doesn't surprise me at all. I think a lot of the investment dollars are going into cool Gen AI and other kind of headline sexy projects, but you can't do those very well without high quality data.
Jason, I see you nodding quite a bit. Does any of this surprise you?
Not at all. Jeremy's just nailed it there, right? You
Yeah.
need very good data to run all the cool stuff, right? But if you're running a data swamp, then you're not going to get any answers. So you've got to start at the basics, and then you can do the cool stuff when you've got the data you need in the form you need it in.
Excellent. All right, we're going to move on to the next question, which is really around the role of managed services and addressing these challenges and optimizing EDM. And Jason, I'm going to go to you as well.
Okay, so anecdotally, right? So I used to run market data at a large investment bank, and every single business in markets would take a cut of that data off the real-time backbone and they would store it. So that's commodities, that's FX, that's FIG, that's equities. All of them are storing this data. So instantly, no single source of truth. So you have a risk to the businesses in capital markets. Then they would continue to store the data. They would never flush it. And then they would all do back testing or testing against these data sets, which were incomplete and wrong. So, that's one of the main things. And I think these guys will agree with that. And what I'm seeing in managed services is people, they want a platform they can run their EDM on, but they don't want to run it themselves. So it's an OPEX over CAPEX play. Every 4 or 5 years, you spend a truckload of money junking your old hardware and then bringing new stuff in. It's a commoditized platform, just go and rent it from somewhere else. And then, people want more and more data. Anecdotally, the head of the FX business at my old place said to me, I need to be in this market now. And I said, okay, give me $500,000 and 9 months and I'll get you into that market. No one wants to wait that long anymore. So push it out to public cloud, push it out to private cloud. EDM needs to run successfully. Like I mentioned earlier, you want a data lake or you want a good platform. You don't want a data swamp. Otherwise, you're going to get fined. The regulators are going to chase you. Your clients are going to trade away. So having that secure, safe platform is always the best start. So getting that right and then having the ability to get your businesses into markets or get them the data they want really quickly makes them very happy. CDOs and data strategists have a hard enough time as it is. Never mind trying to run their core infrastructure and give people access to it as well. So that's where managed services comes in. Take the pain away, give them scalability, give them an OPEX over CAPEX model. They pay monthly, they get the data when they need it. Then the business can focus on making money, not running the stack. So that's the way I see it. That's the way we run and operate today.
Okay, Mark, what do you think about that as well? And where's the optimization of EDM? Where does that come in with managed services?
Yeah, it's interesting because we're literally all touching the same touch points. It's really, configurability, transparency, and flexibility. And I was, thinking about this, and we have done this for a company called Wilshire Indices, and we have a white paper on that. But the main thing is we focus very much to Jeremy's point to make our products configurable and flexible. We focused on actually flexible models, views, business processes. He hit the nail on the head. Not just what the data is and who can see it, but who can do what at which stage in the process. So link that to operators and roles. And once you get to that level of flexibility, yes, you have a standard out-of-the-box offering with most managed services, right? Because everybody wants Bloomberg or something else. But it's the strength of the customization to actually define what you want yourself that is key. So the flexibility and also the transparency, because at the end of the day, somebody will come to you, how did you come up with that number, right? And you need to be able to evidence it. So underpinning all that, we implemented, and most vendors will have implemented data lineage. So if you combine the flexibility and the modeling with data lineage, you've got your transparency, you got your flexibility, and it's configurable. And that's really what you need, because you can't just give clients one thing that fixes all their problems. It is very dependent on their needs.
Excellent. And then the next question, which sort of follows on from this, is what is the role of cloud in addressing these challenges and optimizing EDM. And Mark, I'll keep you going on this question as well.
Yes, I always find it slightly ironic because cloud obviously was, in principle, it's a capex to opex model, but microservices and cloud technology and architectures that has given us the flexibility, specifically around the scaling aspect of a service. To Jason's point, you can't do that with this client server architecture, right? You can't just spin it up and spin it down. With microservice, you got more flexibility, and also with your cloud storage, you can start it up and shut it down. It's all much more virtualized and configurable. Yeah, you just have an on-demand access to compute resource, and you can, apart from running lean to do what you want to do, you can also, in certain circumstances, to Jason's point, if you get your business coming back to you going, I want to do this now, you can scale it up quite easily as well. Whereas in the past you had to, get a server signed off, and then a year later you had your Sun servers, and so that world has definitely changed, and I think that's enabled us to move the services model out and provide actually services in the so the cloud is the underpinning of the managed service offering.
Excellent. Jimmy, I saw you nod quite a bit there. Do you want to come in on this as well?
Yeah, Mark has the perspective in his chair with, kind of a broad technology lens. I think, not much to add, but just a couple specific examples from a storage perspective. Storage is cheap on the cloud, so you can load more data in there, so it's readily available. That adds the flexibility. And I think to his point about microservices and the interoperability of cloud technologies, you have more connectivity across some of these tools. So you're able to string together platforms and services that may have connections out of the box. So you're buying a software that connects software A to software B. It's lower cost of development, lower cost to manage. That ultimately helps kind of focus some of the limited investment which we have on the right things. And then the other point to add would be that I think for us, we've looked at it as, building in compliance by design. So following the cloud model and on our journey to the cloud, putting in processes that say, as that happens, you will be compliant with, and that's just helped level up our overall data management practice with, documenting PII, knowing where critical data elements are. That's obviously a key element of the journey, and the shift to cloud has certainly given us focus on that.
Yeah, Joy, can I add one point to this? Because Jimmy reminded me, the key thing with the configurability, specifically around your business process, is that the timeline, because my time at Accenture, you come up with something, governance would decide something, and you then had a year to implement it. Now with the configurability, you can change those business processes, and it's not the technical change anymore, it's your due diligence that you need to follow through. And that's a massive game changer.
Excellent. Well, I have to say, let's have a bit of a break and go to audience questions, because there's a good question specifically on the security implications of storing sensitive data in the cloud. And the question is, how can organizations mitigate risks and ensure compliance with data protection regulations? Mark, I don't know if you want to take this, or Jimmy.
Yeah, I can kick it off. I think so. One of the things we introduced quite early in our systems and services was OpenID Connect and Auth0. These are standards around accessing data that come from the big vendors, Facebook, Google, and they're you're then operating in a world where nobody is trusted. And as soon as you've got a process that'll make sure that even if you don't trust anyone, you still have the level of control that you need. That is a game changer. And also, a lot of these OpenID services are provided by other vendors that you can mix and match, and they can do geolocations, multiple sign-ons. There's so many. time zone linkage. So they can do so many things to make sure that you're the guy that's supposed to get access to it. Combine that with, the RBAC, so the role-based access to the data and the processes that you control through configuration. You're there, and the general security is much higher now anyway, because all types of data are stored in a secure fashion. Encryption algorithms are up to snuff, as it were. So I think technically we're there, making it all configurable and easy to change and adapt. It has massively shift the situation as well. But human error is still the main problem in most cyber issues, right? So we need to keep that in mind.
Excellent.
Yeah, maybe one point to add, if I could, Joy, is that common resistance is, well, our data is not protected. Well, and in fact, to some of the things Mark just mentioned, it's more protected in the cloud. There's been a concerted effort by the big cloud providers and the technology providers in protecting data, where you can get it down so low. But to Mark's point, there's still human error. But I do think it is quite a bit more protected with all the different controls and policies in place.
Excellent.
Just one
yeah,
other
sure,
thing to
Jeremy.
add, just a little plug for the CDMC, the Cloud Data Management controls, which my good friend and ex-colleague Ollie Bage at LSEG was behind. So if whoever asked that question is interested in all the good practices about data in the cloud, have a look at CDMC, and the big cloud providers and data providers are adhering to that. So that will cover off most of the risks, or all of the risks of data in the cloud.
Excellent. Okay, I'm just going to ask my next question, but we'll go back to audience questions soon. I wanted to talk about, the build versus buy, that conundrum that everyone thinks about. So, and Jeremy, I'm going to aim this at you. What are the practicalities of building versus buying EDM solutions, and how can financial institutions ensure they have the best solution for their needs?
Okay, so let's talk about building first. It's expensive to build your own software. Financial companies are not software companies, and whilst some of them are better than building software than others, it's not their main business. And certainly core data management is most likely not a core differentiator for a financial company. It's what you do with the data that matters. That's the differentiator. So if you're going to build, it's going to be also a multi-year effort, and the payback will be extremely slow. Much slower than buying a SaaS product and filling it with data, and much slower than getting data as a service. So you've got all of those hurdles to deal with. So do you really want to start building it in 2024? Probably not. So if your answer is to buy, then what are you going to buy? Are you going to buy software? Are you going to buy the software and the data? Or are you going to buy the software and the data and the whole end-to-end delivery process to ensure that it's clean and accurate and transformed and curated? So you need to decide where you want to be on that spectrum. And so for some kinds of data, like security reference data or even ESG data, you can buy that. Company name and address data, you can buy that. You can buy lots of data nowadays from all these lovely providers. But there's some data you can't buy. You can't buy your customers' preferences. You can't buy your accounts. You can't buy your product master. Okay, you have to curate that yourself. You have to manage that data yourself. So there's always data that you can't buy from external because it's within the company's boundaries. So, and even if you do buy a solution or even data, you still have to customize and integrate. So that's always a challenge. And so I would summarize it as decide what matters to you, what you can buy and what you can't. Understand if you are really special versus your competitors, and do you have a real differentiator, and build the differentiator if you really have one. Otherwise, just use the best of breed that's out there.
Jason, do you agree with that?
Clearly. So you see a lot of people used to build their own stuff, and then those people would move on to a different company and no one knew how to manage that system. You'd walk past a server that was 10 years old and you wouldn't even look at it just in case it died, and you'd lose your entire platform. So you can buy the software these days, but to Jeremy's point, and it's a very good point, you spoke to your business and your clients and your own products. You'd add your own value to that. You'd build on top of an EDM. I don't know anyone today that would build an entire EDM stack from zero. But you do look at it in the way of, what's my business doing? Where's it going? Do I want to host and run this thing myself, or am I just going to farm this out to a public cloud or private cloud environment, buy basic EDM software that will keep me, one, the regulator's happy. What are you running? If you tell them that you're running something that's 15 years old that was built on premise by some guy that's retired to South Dakota Beach, they're probably going to be a little bit worried. But if you're buying something off the shelf and you're doing version control on it, but then you put your secret sauce on the top that Jeremy alludes to, then you're in a pretty good place. So depends on the size of the company. Do you want to run a tech stack yourself? You might not even have a data center. You might be a small enough company that you're running everything out of public cloud. You'd find the software that works for you and your business's direction and strategy, and then you'd amalgamate your data on top of it. So yeah, I completely agree with what you said.
Excellent. So the next question is from the audience, and it's really about how can organizations leverage emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence or AI, machine learning, and Internet of Things, for example. I'd also like to throw in generative AI in conjunction with the cloud and managed services to further optimize their EDM and unlock new opportunities for innovation and growth. And I'm going to ask Jimmy because it's quite a difficult and complex question.
Thank you, Joy. It was said earlier, right? It's the garbage in, garbage out adage is true, right? You need to focus on that quality data to build a quality model to get quality results. That's how I have approached the whole AI aspect in general. I think if you look at EDM in particular, there's some interesting ways that it can be applied to modeling, which we've talked about, pointing at data sets to understand, what models are out there, how might you model this data within a context. There's also an element of discovery in terms of, in this data product ecosystem, discoverability and the data catalog is important. You need to know what your data is so that it's accessible. And I think AI can really help there to hit on something we talked about earlier, is limited capacity. You can point an AI engine at a data set that may give you predictive analysis of what's included in that data set that kind of takes some of the onus off of the data steward role, which I mentioned earlier, that helps, it's a force multiplier. So those are two of the ways that I've heard it being discussed, and two of the ways that really get you to focus AI and point it at being value add to your EDM.
Excellent. All right, we're sort of coming towards the end of the webinar, which is a real shame because it's been such an interesting conversation. But we're going to have one more poll. Can we bring up the poll, which is what extent of business and operational benefits does your organization gain or expect to gain from optimized EDM? And then while people are voting, I'm going to pose that question. What are the business and operational benefits to optimize EDM? I'll aim it at Jeremy first.
Okay, so apart from direct financial aspects, so each business needs to quantify that itself. So as an architect, I'm going to talk about maybe some of the non-directly financial benefits. Better quality, right? So better quality will result in greater automation possibilities, less operational breaks, etc. Means you should be able to give better service levels to your customers ultimately, and then also better data quality will breed trust from your users. So that's the number one thing the business want from the data in their applications is trust in their data, so that they can have a solid foundation to build new value streams on. So typical value streams nowadays, AI-enabled services that you can trust. But of course, if the core data is not accurate, then your AI-enabled service is not going to be accurate. So people are using their own data, using what they call RAG techniques to basically pump that data into the AI model to ground them, which reduces the hallucinations. So you can basically get much better quality results from your AI projects if you have better quality data coming in. And even without AI, let's talk about old school data science and machine learning, etc. You need high quality data. You need to have access to more data sets than ever before, data from multiple providers. So if your data is high quality, then you can join it on known identifiers that match, and you can basically harness a much broader set of data so that you can apply more advanced models on your current data stacks. So that's my answer on that.
Perfect. All right, can we see the answers from the poll and see where we're at? So significant operational benefits from 73% of the audience. Business benefits are a bit further down. Yeah, excellent. So Jason, just to come back to that, so is that surprising to you? And then what do you think are the business and operational benefits of optimized EDM?
I think it just goes back to, the data quality has to be good, to Jeremy's point just now. You have to be able to support your businesses, get them into the markets they need to be in, or get them access to they want really quickly. So I think that's pretty key, right? Everyone is fighting for wallet share at the moment. You've got to get them in there. You've got to do your modeling quickly and rapidly. Again, to some of the points the guys have made, buy the infrastructure stack or get someone else to run it, have your right EDM software as your basis, and then your secret sauce sits on top. So as long as you get that right, like they said, bad data in, it's that bad data out. So you've just got to get that right from the outset.
Excellent. And Mark, did you want to add anything in terms of what kind of business or operational benefits?
Yeah, I think actually to touch on 2 points. One that Jimmy raised about the custodian of this data. When we mentioned earlier, once you have the models, the metadata that models your data, but also data operations allowed on it, and then you've captured the data lineage as we do as well, so you actually see how the system is being used. You've got structured data, the real data, and what has been done with that data. Now, you need good quality data, but you also need large volumes of data. And we're going to start running a pilot where we take all the data, then apply that to the business processes for analysis. And that, in essence, gives suggestions to a custodian of the data where you can tweak things. Because most of the time, data flows through your system. If you have a consistent flow of the data where not too many issues are flagged up, that is a good sign. Where you see restrictions, and that's where AI can help you. You can spot patterns in your data, for example, seasonality. So combining a good set of data, which is both structured metadata and the real data with AI, is really a key for getting bigger bang for your buck, especially operationally.
Okay. All right, we're almost at the end, which is such a shame because I really think we could talk about this all day. But I'm just going to ask one more question. I'm going to get each of the panelists to answer, which is please provide three pieces of advice for practitioners working to optimize EDM. And I'll start with Jimmy.
I'll give you three, Joy. The first one is change management is key. You have to focus on building data literacy. The second one is start small. I think helping to build data literacy is by giving examples, and starting small is the way to do that. Start small and iterate. And then the last one we kind of just touched on is focus on the value. To get investment, you kind of have to demonstrate the value of data, and it should absolutely make you money, save you money, and or reduce risk. Excellent.
Jeremy, three pieces of advice.
Spend time understanding your current business processes and creating better business processes, the optimized ones. And evaluate any products to be able to affect those business processes and model your data. That's the first thing. Decide what you want to build and what you want to buy, and know why you're doing it. Understand your expertise levels and your differentiators. Play to your strengths, not your weaknesses. And the third thing I think is make it your mission to automate everything, even if it's aspirational. So bring data ops into your organization. It will pay off. Your users will trust the data. It will be better. It will be faster. You'll be able to change more things and be more agile and effectively provide better services for your customers. So I think those are my key three.
Excellent. Mark?
Well, first of all, prioritize when you're looking at options, interoperability and configurability. Make sure that you, from a cloud perspective, leverage the scalability of it, the operational resilience, and check out the cost benefit, right? Be really conscious of you're trying to save money as well. And on the AI side, don't be afraid to try it. But to Jeremy's point, have an objective. Why are you doing it? Don't be bedazzled with the technology. Use it for a specific purpose and measure it by achieving that purpose.
Excellent. And Jason, last but not least.
So I think I'm going to go with some old points here. So for me, it's cost of running this thing, right? CapEx over OpEx, scalability. You've got to get that right from the kickstart. You've got to be aligned with your business. You don't want to be storing stuff over here when they've got a plan over there. So you've got to be in the room. You've got to understand where they're going, what they're doing, what their growth factors are. And then secondly, data rates are growing rapidly. Something you might build today, you might not be able to scale in 2 or 3 years' time. So it's like, where are you going to go next 2, 3, 4, 5 years? So that's it for me. CapEx versus OpEx, working directly with your businesses, and then looking to the future. And then the final point I'm going to give you, for every $1 clients spend on buying data, they spend $7 managing that data, either storing it or administrating it. Just something to take away.
Yeah, that is a big takeaway, actually. But thank you so much to Jeremy, Jimmy, Mark, and Jason for your insights. Thanks to the sponsors, LSEG Data and Analytics and Alveo. And just a quick reminder of our upcoming events that you can sign up for: the AI and Capital Markets Summit in London in June, the webinar, how to maximize the use of data standards and identifiers beyond compliance in the interests of the business in July, and the Data Management Summit, New York City, in September. Final thanks to our impressive speakers. Please complete our feedback form, as we're always keen to hear your views and improve our products. Thanks so much for joining us for this informative webinar. I'm sorry for all the questions that we didn't get to today, but please come back for other webinars that we're putting on. But thank you very much for participating in the webinar on enterprise data management in the capital markets. Thank you all.
Yeah.